Yep.
Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, but let's be real. That was not good. That was not bon. Scott Matla, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm not going to try and put any of my French skills to the test here because it's been 15 years since I've spoken any even conversation of French, so I'm not gonna do that on a live stream here tonight, unfortunately.
No, I get it. Don't worry. You don't have to. It's just something that I try to do as much as I can because I'm trying to get better and more confident at it. But yeah, so that was a brutal game from the Montreal Canadiens. There's nothing really to give them much credit for tonight. Uh, I don't think there's much to give credit to the Detroit Red Wings either. I don't think this was so much a game where the Detroit Red Wings played well, so much as the Canadiens played poorly. But also, there's some, as always, man, I'm so tired of talking about the refs, Scott. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of it, but we'll probably have to touch on it a little bit. So we're going to do it a little bit different tonight. We're going to do our first period where we recap the game, kind of go through it, give our feelings, but we're going to skip the second and third periods tonight. Whoa. And my mic's going to move around apparently. And we're going to go to the stream chat and see if they have any questions. They want to go back and forth. I feel like that's going to be more entertaining than talking about this specific game. So it's going to be a little bit different tonight, and that's okay. So in the spirit of that, as we transition to the third period, or first period, sorry, I will just right away go to our sponsor who brings us the first period, Inchibiju. And then when we come back on the other side, Scott Matla and I from formerly Locked On Canadiens, currently still Habs Eyes in the prize, will dig into this game with the Montreal Canadiens against the Detroit Red Wings. And yeah, if you're in the chat, leave us some comments and stuff. Like the stream, subscribe to the show. It really helps. And we won't put lipstick on this pig, but hopefully by the end of the show, you'll feel a little bit better than you did at the end of the game because it wasn't a fun one. But here's Inchibiju.
At the famous chateau at 4000 Rue Saint Ambroise lies one of Montreal's coolest secrets, a glamorous Gothic jewelry store owned and run by women. Inchu Bijou isn't just a business. They've built a community that supports bold creativity and expression. When I was first introduced to founder Astrida Pisigomian's shop, I was floored by the detail, vision, and scale of what she's built from her own mind. I don't think anyone would call me goth, but I know an innovator when I see one. Along with building their own business, Inchu Bijou also hosts markets for vendors in their space called Marché Maleficarum, boosting their whole community. If you don't live in Montreal, explore inchubiju.com, where you'll find over 800 designs that range from affordable to bespoke. Check out Inchu Bijou right now, a Game Over partner from the beginning.
Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I'm Andrew Berkshire. I'm here with Scott Matla, or as some of you may know him, Scoot Mattle. Since the last time Scott was here, he's now a married man. So congratulations, Scott and Carly. I tried to get you on your wedding, but that was not going to work.
It was funny. We're sitting there in the farmhouse afterwards. I look down at my phone. There's some messages from I posted something on Blue Sky, and the first thing I see is, I have a DM from somebody. I'm like, let me go look at this, and it's Andrew going, hey man, can you hop on? I'm like, you know what? It might be the funniest thing in the world to do a post game show from my phone in the middle of the dance floor, but I don't think it would have made quality content, unfortunately, for that. So
Probably not, and I feel like maybe Carly wouldn't have been that pleased with that choice.
she looked at me for a second. I was like, yeah, Andrew sent me a message like, oh, congratulations. I was like, no, he wants to know if I want to do the show tonight. She just kind of looked at me for a second. I was like, I said no. I hope you understand that I said no at the very least, but it was a good time. And as always, I always appreciate any opportunity to come on and talk hockey, even if it's not great in like tonight was. So
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to the chat here, Montreal MUFC, David Wem, Robert Rice. I'm glad to see some folks tuning in, even though it was not exactly a fun one. David makes the point that the Habs did draw lazy and dumb penalties, but not all. Yeah, I mean, I think most of the penalties the Canadians took tonight were penalties. I think that's fair. Maybe not the Kapanen tap to Moritz Seider's head. I think the issue tonight with that was more in that what Detroit was able to get away with. Like, it was so tilted, the standard tonight. It's not that the Canadians were overly called in an unfair way. But the Detroit Red Wings cheat by strategy. Like, Moritz Seider is terrible, man. Like, I don't know about you, Scott, but watching him, I'm like, this guy, I know he's supposed to be like their star guy. If he was my top defenseman, I'd be looking for another team because he's not good. Like, he has to cheat on almost every play. It's brutal.
It was such a weird game tonight because I'm watching Detroit just do whatever they wanted in the front of the net, and the Canadiens felt like they played this frustrated style that when none of the bounces went their way, none of the passes went their way, they just didn't have the plan B. And Detroit's just like, well, we're just going to jam up everything and make that even harder for you guys to try and do anything. And because the officials aren't calling holding or slashing or the sticks for that, I agree that most of the Canadiens' penalties were probably penalties for this game. It's, I have plenty of my own thoughts about NHL officiating. Do I think there should have been more called against Detroit? Probably, but I'm also biased in that regard for it. But it was just a weird game where I'm just like, I want this team to just shoot the ball more or shoot the puck more. Stop trying to overpass it. Just be simple with it because they didn't make John Gibson's life hard at all. Part of the reason they won that first matchup so handedly is they just assaulted John Gibson. And in this game, it was like they tried to walk the puck into the net, and that just wasn't there for it. It was frustrating when Caulfield's throwing his body around and like shoving dudes and hitting people with intent. You know that the temperature is rising a little bit there for everybody involved in that game.
Yeah, 100%. And Caulfield took a lot of rough rides in that game. There was one shift in the third period where he was along the boards. Moritz Seider couldn't catch up to him, and he just hauls off and punches him in the back of the head. And then like 10 seconds later, not even that much, I don't think. It was like 4 or 5 seconds later, he gets high sticked in the teeth. And I guess that was a follow through. The guy was trying to make a play on the puck. And then they stay in the offensive zone. And what was the lot? There was another one too. He got slew-footed along the boards. I don't know who it was, which Detroit player it was, but Caulfield has the puck along the boards, and the guy just takes his feet out with his leg, like, and pushes his arms back or his shoulders back. Like, nothing gets called. I get the frustration from the Habs. I actually think they did a pretty decent job of playing within the rules while frustrated in the third period. I loved Arbor Jack Guy tonight. That's like my lone thing to write home. Actually, Caden Gooley was pretty good too, and Dobson. So like there was a few good guys, but I thought Arbor Jack Guy really shone tonight in the physicality department. Like when he was getting in on guys, he was getting them pretty damn good, and getting 2 licks on Patrick Kane in one shift is pretty damn good too.
Arbor Jack Guy from the outside, when I was watching the start of this game, I'm like, I'm noticing 2 things. One, the Gallagher-Deneau line seems to be out there every other shift, whether I like that or not. I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't think I'm really going to in a 4-0 loss anyways. Yeah. And that I'm noticing Jack Guy being confident in the offensive zone with the puck, being authoritative with it. He's not second-guessing what he's doing. He's just being direct with it, which is what I want from a guy on my third pair is don't hesitate, just make the simple play. And then he was just destroying dudes within the rules. He didn't cross that line, and we know that, and I love Arbor Jack Guy, and I love his brother, but they have that tendency to sometimes step over that line, and we defend them a lot, but there are times that it happens. This is what I want from him. That is, if you're going to be that third-pairing defenseman, just be nasty. He destroyed JT Compher twice on one shift. Kane, he was right on him, laid him out at the end of the game there when he could have just been like, it's 3-0, whatever. And he finished his checks. That's why he's in the lineup. And that's why Jaden Struble isn't, because he's making the right decisions with the puck and without it too, even if he's chasing the play a little bit. I was a big fan of what I saw from him tonight, and it looks like he's really kind of taken that, step to solidify what he is as a defenseman. That's what I wanted last year and at the beginning of this year. He and Struble kind of alternated. Jack Guy was good, Struble wasn't. Struble was great, Jack Guy, and then it's kind of seeming like Arbor Jack Guy is solidifying that, 5-6 spot in this Canadiens lineup, and that's not a bad thing. I think he's a really damn good defenseman to have, especially in the Atlantic where there's a lot of nasty teams out there.
Yeah, and this is what the Canadiens need from him, right? They need him to be solid in that role. Like, they don't want him to be in and out of the lineup. They want him to be a core player, really. Maybe not top 4, but like a core depth guy, if that exists. But his unique skill set, kind of makes him in that mold. He's a rare like a diamond in the rough in a way. And yeah, he was fantastic tonight. He's been fantastic a lot recently. Even playing with Struble, who has really been struggling and kind of sunk their numbers, Jack was standing out pretty much every single game lately for just doing good stuff. Like he's just making good decisions with and without the puck, as Scott said. And man, does he ever get his licks in? Like he's so damn strong. Other than him, man, there wasn't a lot to write home about tonight for the Canadiens. It was a rough one. Like I see some comments about like the effort level. I'm going to give them a break. And maybe I'm being too kind here. You can tell me, Scott, but this is their third game in 4 nights. The last 2 games, they absolutely dummied Calgary. Like that was the most dominant game that they've probably played this season from beginning to end. They never let up. And if not for Dustin Wolf standing on his head, that game probably ends like 9 or 10 nothing. Like that's how badly they were trouncing the Flames, despite the fact that they got shafted on penalties in that game too, which I believe was also Kelly Sutherland, unless he's just done the last 2. But I think he did the back-to-back on the weekend.
So Garrett Wright had the Calgary game, I believe, and Kelly Sutherland had the Florida game, which also wasn't good. So
yeah, the Florida game wasn't much better in terms of officiating. I know they were even on penalties, but it's the Florida Panthers. Let's be real. And they didn't play a great game against the Florida Panthers in terms of like outplaying them, but second half of a back-to-back against the reigning Stanley Cup champions, they held the fort and like didn't really allow them to have control of the game at any point. So they played like a great road game at home, I would call it, against the Panthers. And then you have this game against Detroit. They're leading the division. It's for the top of the division. The Canadiens just do this sometimes where they're on the edge of kind of taking control of their destiny. And they're like, nah, we don't need to do that tonight.
We saw them do it in going for the playoffs last year. It's like you have to win one game, and there are bad teams there. You have to win one game. That's all you got to do, or get a point and you're in. And they're just like, maybe. It took us playing Carolina's AHL affiliate to get into the playoffs because of that. But like sometimes the moment gets a little big, and they're a young team, which is understandable. I don't think Fowler was to blame for anything tonight. He's a rookie goalie. You know, despite what Gary Galley wants to say about goaltending where a puck bounces off the Zamboni doors. And it's just one of those things that after the Florida game, that's a huge come down because you're up there. That's 7 in a row against the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, 3-time Cup finalists. It was nasty. It was physical. There's a lot of, big emotions with that. And there's a little bit of a come down after that. It's just a shame it came into this game where there was first place in the division on the line. I get that they have, an interdivisional rivalry with Detroit and stuff like that, but I don't think this has that same emotion that Florida has. Or I looked at the schedule this week. They play the Capitals this week. They play the Senators this week. Those games you're going to see, I think, a lot of intensity in that. And this one just kind of felt like, I'm not going to accuse anybody of taking a night off because they're professional athletes. They can, do whatever it is. It felt like that second gear never came in. And that is a problem sometimes when plan A doesn't work. You need that effort for plan B, and plan B just wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah, this is a game where I feel like they really missed Josh Anderson, and they've had a few of those games while he's been out where they need somebody to bring that energy, and they've got players on the roster who can do that. Like I thought Arbor Xhekaj did a great job in this one. And I'm assuming that part of the reason why he was so aggressive is because he could feel that they needed him to get things going. The energy was not there. But it is one of those things where I'm seeing a lot of upsets, and I get it. 4-0 sucks. But you got to put into context like what the Canadiens have been doing here. And I think we all need to look at the forest for the trees, because the way we do hockey coverage is very game by game emotional reactions, right? But this team just went on a 7-game road trip, like a murderer's row road trip, and went 4-1-2, and then came back, had the potential to have this huge letdown, because this almost always happens on a long road trip. You get home and you play a listless effort. Instead, they dominated a bad team, like showed them who was boss essentially. And then they have the Stanley Cup champions the next day, and they beat them too. So, like, yeah, it sucks. But I'm going to put it a different way than Scott did, where he was trying to not trash the Canadiens for not showing up, like saying like, oh, they didn't really show up. I'm going to say, just based on how they've played the Red Wings for the last couple of years, I don't think they take the Red Wings seriously. I think they care a lot about the Senators games, which they win sometimes, they lose sometimes, but they're always chaotic and emotional. They care a lot about like Toronto games, but Detroit, I don't think they see, even though they're a division rival, I don't think they see them as serious competition. And I saw Montreal MUFC was saying in the chat that Detroit seems to not have off nights like this. I'll tell you right now the difference between the Montreal Canadiens and the Detroit Red Wings in terms of like gap in the division, even though it's like 1 or 2 points. I've been tracking penalties this year, for and against. I'm through the entire Atlantic Division, so I have the stats for each team in the Atlantic Division, how many penalties they draw, what kinds of penalties they draw, who draws or takes them, and also what game state and period each of those penalties happens in. So like one thing that I've noticed, which is as expected, when a team is trailing, usually they draw a higher percentage of the calls than when the game is tied or when they're leading. It's just game management in the NHL. When you're trailing, you get more opportunities to score goals. Except the Montreal Canadiens, who, when they're tied, they draw 53% of the minor penalties. So like pretty darn good. When they're trailing, 47%. Whereas the Detroit Red Wings, when they are tied, sorry, it's just zooming in on Excel for me for no reason. When they are tied, they draw 53.6% of the penalties, so very similar to Montreal. But when they're trailing, they get 65% of the calls, one of the biggest pushes of any team in the league. And when they're trailing in the third period, they get 73% of the calls. Whereas the Canadiens, when they're trailing in the third period, 35%. So like we could talk about whether that has something to do with style of play, but watching this game tonight, anybody believe that?
No.
It could just be random distribution of calls, right? It could, 100%. But it looks bad for the league, in my opinion. Especially considering it all kind of started when Marty was pushing back on the refs in that game against Edmonton, I believe. So it's sus, to say the least. But whether or not it's sus or not, the practical effect is Detroit has a much easier time when they're trailing than the Canadiens do. So the Canadiens are still coming back in a lot of these games, but they're not getting any help. So that's like the main difference between the two teams. It's not that Detroit is more consistent. If anything, they've been very, very lucky in terms of their goal distribution game to game because they're not a team that outscores their opposition.
I'm actually looking at the standings right now, and I don't know if this is updated through tonight, but I think it is. Detroit has a +3 goal differential. So does Montreal. Like that's not like it's any different. I watched this game go, and it's like I know that they have talented players. I know that Mo Seider, penalties or not tonight, is a talented player. That Lucas Raymond is a talented player. I love Dylan Larkin, like unabashedly love that player. It's just I look at them and I go, this is not a team that is blowing me away. Like Tampa in the prime could just do whatever they wanted. Florida, nonsense aside, when they're on their game, are an absolute nightmare, and because they have the depth and talent to do that. Even Toronto at their best with the core four when they were playing well before the playoffs started. I just look at Detroit and I just go, I don't see what's causing you to get the benefit of the doubt on everything in here. I watched Ben Sherratt for years in the Canadiens uniform and went, you never got the benefit of the doubt on this. Like, what's going on here? And to talk about the feeling after the road trip and everything going on, I'm looking at the division. Detroit's 7-2-1 in their last 10. Tampa's 9-1-0. The Sabres are red hot 9-1-0 in their last 10. The Habs are 6-2-2, and it feels bad, which isn't really the case.
Yeah, it's really strange because on top of like what the Canadiens have done recently, we have to put into context that like half the middle of their lineup is out. I know Gooley's back today, but it's his first game in the last 40.
Yeah.
Like the Phil Deneau trade really solidified like the middle of the Canadiens lineup in this stretch here, but they're missing a lot of players. Like I don't think we've mentioned it a lot on this show, but nobody really talks about how much they miss Alex Newhook. Like, that dude was having the best season of his career. He looked incredible out there. And, we have enough positives that it's not like all doom and gloom about it. But the Canadiens have fought through some serious losses this season, as have every team, because I believe we're already on pace to obliterate the record for man games lost to injury in the NHL this year. These compressed schedules are garbage. And the Canadiens, by the way, I believe right now are in the midst of a stretch of 5 games in 7 days.
That's insanity.
Which if I was the NHLPA, I'd be like, this cannot happen. It's crazy to put these guys through that. 5 games in 7 days. And honestly, the poor coaches too. How do you coach when you can't practice?
And that's the thing is, I'm glad you mentioned that because, like, and to tie this into something that I pay attention to a lot, the AHL just ratified a new CBA that limits how many 3-and-3s or back-to-back series there can be because, one, they're not traveling on a plane, they're traveling on a bus. And they need that. If it's supposed to be development, it's still a professional league, you need that time. And you can tell when a team's been traveling a lot. They get to the end of the road trip, if there's illness going around, guys are beat up. You can't get treatment or like recover sitting on a coach for, 6 hours between trips and everything, or between games and stuff. That's not good. And it makes me, my wife went out, she's like, there's a lot of hockey going on. I'm like, it doesn't seem that, but she's like, you've watched 4 games this week. And it's like, oh yeah, they played Sunday, they played Tuesday, they might've played Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they played Saturday. And it's like, oh, like you said, it's compressed. And with the Canadiens, they're down Line A, and I know people are going to roll their eyes at that. Patrick Laine is still an NHL hockey player, and you can probably help on the power play a lot there. They were missing Caden Gooley for a long time. They're missing Alex Newhook on their penalty kill and to fill in that middle 6. They're missing Kirby Dach to fill in their top 6 somewhere on that. They've got injuries at the lower level. They missed David Reinbach for part of the year. Joshua Waugh's been out 4 to 6 weeks on that. It takes a toll on people. And and Kay's going to kill me. I forgot Jake Evans is out, missing, a couple of weeks here. So those are not little injuries. Yeah, people are going to go, oh, Jake Evans, your, 4th line center, our lead penalty killer, a guy who does a lot for Martin St. Louis in this system there. And with the schedule being so tight, it's hard. And I'm glad they kind of have 3 goalies they can kind of rotate interchangeably. It's not ideal, but at least they're not overworking one guy into the ground now.
Yeah, it does help. And I know there's a lot of people who are kind of frustrated with the 3 goalies thing, and a lot of Dobesh fans who seem to think that he's getting a raw deal. But I think he's been the least reliable lately. Definitely the most wild looking. He seems kind of lost in his crease at times. So I think they're handling it pretty darn well. And I think that this club has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt with their handling of players, young players especially. So that's where I am at it. I understand other people might feel differently. But Laine on the power play, Ethan Habs brings up, it just never really looks, without Laine on the power play, it just never looks dangerous. I mean, they had a top 5 power play until this recent stretch. I think they were 4th in the league before December 12th. So they've been dangerous, but they're definitely in a rut right now. There's no doubt about that. But circling back quickly on what Scott had mentioned earlier about Detroit and how they don't feel scary, I think that's one of the big interesting things about the Red Wings being where they are. I don't think when you get the Red Wings fastball, like if tonight was the Red Wings fastball, I would not be worried about them in a 7-game series at all. They don't scare me.
No, they're a team that I think is talented. You're not top in this very competitive division if you're not. And I never want to try and talk down to too many opponents unless you're the Senators or the Leafs, because that's just who I am as a person.
And Sabres.
And I've stopped talking down to boogeyman teams at this point, but I look at them and I go, this was a game where the Canadiens did more to beat themselves than the Red Wings did. Is like the first goal went in off the stanchion, and that just seemingly like took the air out of the Canadiens. Sorry, I have the Packers game on in the background during the playoffs here, but and it's just a weird fluke thing is that I'm watching this and I just go, Detroit's not really doing anything to wow me, and then the puck just kind of goes in anyways.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah, they're like a bumble team, right? They just kind of have things go their way. And it never really feels earned, but they have good players. But I looked throughout their lineup. It was funny when I was tracking the penalties because I'm tracking like who's drawing, who's taking. Of all the teams in the Atlantic Division, Detroit was the one where I was like, who? Who's that? Like, who the hell? What is that name? I've never heard that name. They are just like a team of guys. I know that there's a lot of young players in that team, so that's why it feels that way. But a huge percentage of their roster are totally unfamiliar names.
It's such a I felt that way about the Carolina game a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, who the hell is Joel Nystrom? Like, who are these guys? It's clear that it works because Carolina's, always going to be Carolina. And what the hell was that? I don't know what Detroit is overall. I feel that way about a lot of teams in the league this year, is that I don't know what you are, because especially in the East, everything is you're a 3-game win streak from the playoffs and a 2-game losing streak from being out of the wild card, it feels like. In that, can I tell you who's good or bad? No. I can tell you the teams that I think are good, maybe, but I can't tell you and maybe that's why Detroit to me is like, I don't know what you are, and I'm not as afraid of you. I came into this game thinking it should be competitive. It's not going to be stupid or nasty like the Florida game or the Ottawa game is going to be next week. I just don't know what it's going to be. And it turned out to just, I don't want to say boring, but kind of a snoozer, in that not a lot really happened in this. Obviously, not scoring goals will do that, but.
Yeah, there wasn't really like for either team. I believe the high danger chances at the end of the game were like 9-5. And in all situations, they were only 10-5. And I would say, like, if anything, to give the Canadiens credit, I mean, I thought they were pretty good on the penalty kill. The one goal they allowed was just like bang bang off of a face-off, and that just kind of happens. But so much of this game was just bounces. And not to say that the Red Wings weren't the better team, because I think they were. But after like the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game, the energy just petered out. And it became a boring slog where neither team shot the puck very much. But I think one of the biggest differences between the two teams tonight was the Canadiens. When you look at their unblocked shots, it was like half of them, the Canadiens missed the net. I don't know if it was just that they were off tonight or what, or maybe John Gibson was in their heads. But again, I don't think he did enough to be in their heads.
It's one of those things that when their first pass didn't work, they didn't know what to do. And nothing highlighted it more. There were 2 plays in the third period. Ivan Demidov goes around Ben Sherratt. He's got the entire lower half of the net. And I'm like, I know you can make this shot. And he tries to feed a perfect pass across the crease there. And it's like, I just want you to take that shot. Nick Suzuki walks into the slot and he tries to pass it off. And it's like,
yep,
you can score that goal. I have seen you do it more times than I can remember. I just want to see you take that shot. It felt like they were all trying to be unselfish. And it's just like, just rip it, guys. I know you can make this pass, but it's not working. Make John Gibson make saves. They didn't do that. And when they did, they were not, screen chances. They were from distance. They weren't threatening. If you don't make the goalie work for it, it doesn't really matter, no matter how good your effort was.
That's one of the reasons I think Dobson stood out tonight, right? Because he's a guy that sometimes you don't really want him to, but he likes to take the shot. And right now, in games like this where the Canadiens are overpassing and trying to do like the pretty play or like the perfect shot, you need guys that just fire the puck. And I saw, before we switch over to the questions here, because we're going to switch in a minute to the overtime segment. We're just going to skip there today. Before we do that, we'll do a quick little ad for Le Saint Motel. But before we get into that, there's a lot of talk about Brendan Gallagher right now. And I feel like it's a little hyperbolic. I saw some comments about like he shouldn't have been out at the end of the game there, or that they don't like him on the power play. On the power play, I kind of get, because like the foot speed can be an issue. But at the end of the game there, that long shift where Gallagher was out there, he was a participant in making that happen. Like, they were getting some decent chances. I think the reason why Gallagher is consistently chosen for those situations, it's not that he's the veteran who Marty like can't bench or anything like that. I think that he reliably wins puck battles and gets the puck to the middle of the ice. And that's just a valuable thing. He's not going to be scoring the goals anymore. He might not even get the assist, but he creates the play that can become the scoring play, if that makes sense.
I've been trying to wrangle how I feel about Brendan Gallagher this season, because the biggest thing for me is that he's a step slower than he has been in the past. And I don't think that's
Definitely.
really up for debate at this point, in that he wants to play that same energy role. He's not a 20 goal guy. He's not a 30 goal guy anymore. Those days are long gone. They went away when Weber shattered his hand again. And that robs him a little bit, is because you see him out there trying to hustle, but sometimes it looks like he's in molasses, and he's in that leverage line with Deneau and now Bolduc, trying to, play those tougher minutes. And sometimes it just looks like he's exhausted. And I don't know if it's a conditioning thing, if it's just, his hips or his knees or whatever it is are just kind of rocked there. It's just, you can see he's trying to play that same thing. I think he's still effective at what he does, but I'm trying to think of the last time I saw Brendan Gallagher in front of the net, backed up, blocking off a couple of guys and getting his sticks on shots. He's there, he'll, put pucks off the pads and everything, but it feels like more often he's now playing out from the net a little bit, which is, he's still effective there if he can pivot and move, but with that kind of finesse out of his game a little bit as he's gotten older there, which is wild to say because I'm pretty sure he's younger than I am at this point.
Younger than me too.
It's just, I watch him do that and I go, this is not the guy who used to be at the net front there a little bit. And maybe that's something, it's just with Bolduc on that line that they want him to be the net front guy, which I don't know what Zach Bolduc is on this team right now. I don't think he's a washed up player. I just don't know what his most effective role is anymore, because he can't be a fourth line energy guy if he can't keep that pace there. Jake Evans has a bit of speed to him. I think Sammy Blais plays quite well with pace. Joe Veleno's not a snail by any means. It's trying to figure out what to do with him that makes the most sense, because I still think he's really good at generating pressure, like you said. I just want to know where to put him at this point is all.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard for me.
It's kind of the same situation as Zach Bolduc in a way, right? Is like the injuries have shifted things and there's no easy spot. And I think Gallagher fits with Deneau pretty well for what they want that line to do. I'm not convinced Bolduc does right now, but you know what? Let's shift over to the questions, because there was a question about Bolduc. And before we do, we'll just do a quick ad for the St. Motel. But make sure you like the stream and subscribe if you're here and you're enjoying it. Enjoying some hockey talk after the Habs lose 4-0 to the Detroit Red Wings with Scott Matla on Game Over Montreal.
While you're browsing Inchu Bijou's goth shop, head next door and discover Montreal's most unique selfie studio. Whether you're looking to take some banger pics of your Halloween costume or cosplay, or you want to make some memories with friends, the St. Motel has you covered. Experience their bombastic decors that are always changing, hop in the ball pit, and take advantage of their extensive and flexible on-site lighting. Head to lesaintmotel.com to book your time in the studio, book private time where you and your friends will be the only ones allowed in, or book the space for an event. The dedicated, caring staff will make sure that you have a good time. I do have one warning for you before you book. If you have kids, they won't want to leave. Whether you're at the St. Motel or Inchu Bijou, tell them Game Over sent you.
Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I'm Andrew Berkshire. He's Scott Matla. Actually, a little aside, Le St. Motel has a special on right now for couples, where they'll take photographs of couples, right? And they advertised it as we'll take the pictures that your boyfriend or husband would ruin, because this is a meme that men are really bad at taking photos of their partners. And they got so much hate in DMs on Instagram and stuff, angry dudes oh, I take good pictures. You don't. We don't usually. So they have a great photographer there who's the co-owner, actually, Marissa Parasella, that you can take advantage of and have some great pictures of you and your partner. So go do that. And don't harass people just because they have funny advertising. That's not nice. But there's a question here from Montreal MUFC saying, speaking of the guys who will return from injuries, who from the current starters do you think will be sacrificed? I was sacrifice. We're getting rid of them. Do you think Zach Bolduc can do with a stint in Laval? I think that's a little bit too much of a drop for him. I think Sammy Blais is the obvious one that's going to get dropped first. Not that he's been bad. I think, honestly, for what Sammy Blais is, he's been freaking great. He plays such a heavy game. He's gotten a few points in there. But honestly, I think looking at it objectively, the fourth line right now is probably not on the roster if the roster is healthy. Is that fair? All of them.
I think Beck's going to go down. He has, he's waiver exempt. They'll send him down. I don't think he's played poorly. I think his ceiling has changed from what we thought it might be in that maybe middle six. I think he's going to be a reliable bottom six, checking defensive center. That's always been where he's been best at. He's a really smart player, and he's kind of developed a little bit this year on that. Sammy Blais, I think I'm potentially worried about losing him on waivers again to a team that wants to add that back there. I
Yeah.
think Toronto probably wants him back at some point for whatever reason. Craig Berube loved him, even if he played him 4.5 minutes a night. But Sammy Blais is someone they brought in for the Rocket to really be that playoff guy, to take some of the pressure off of Florian Jacki and Luke Tuck, to be that physical presence. Joe Veleno mode, is a perfectly cromulent 13th forward. I think he's fine. He goes into the press box on that. Defense. The question for me becomes, what do they do on defense? Because Strubal's now your seventh defenseman. I think this is kind of the way that it's set there. I think Engstrom played pretty well, but I think they're going to give him more time with the Rocket as well. I'm in no mood to rush David Reinbacher up unless the Rocket have clinched and the Habs have a playoff spot and you want to give him a cup of coffee. That's one thing. But like you said, it's that fourth line. I don't think Bolduc needs to go to the AHL. I think that's a waste of time, honestly, for him.
Yeah.
And it probably isn't a great message to send to him either on that. Unless, for whatever reason, I'm knocking on wood, he gets injured and he needs some time to get a conditioning stint. I think you just work with him through that. And I was talking with Ian and Laura from Locked On Canadiens about this. With Bolduc, I just don't know what kind of player he is. I know what he did for the Blues last year, but the Blues and Canadiens are not the same team. And I don't know where to place him in when you have a top six that seemingly is locked in together right now. Even if Texier is not a permanent fixture on that top line, I'm not quite sure what to do with him otherwise. I don't think rotating him in and out is a bad thing. It's just that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges heading into the back half of this year and into next offseason is, what do you do with Zach Bolduc to get the most out of him? And I hope that's something they address pretty soon with that.
Yeah, they've got to figure out something. I think the big thing to remember with Bolduc for those who are kind of frustrated right now, because fair enough, he's been struggling for a while. Like, he has not figured it out. He's had games where he looks good, but the Zach Bolduc of the beginning of the season hasn't shown up for a while, at least not consistently. And we know that there's a good player in there. I mean, he was good last year for St. Louis in a multitude of ways. He can be a good player, but he's also 22 and has some development to go. It's one of those situations where I feel like if we weren't dealing with such a compressed schedule where they can't practice, we might see a lot more out of Zach Bolduc fitting in on this team. But he's a guy who needs more development. And while this is a team that has a great development staff, very clearly, and has eyes on where players need to be, where they need to improve, it's a tougher schedule this year. It just is. And for guys like that who are, I don't want to say on the margins, but they're on a new team, they're trying to find their role, it's going to be a more of an uphill battle. I do wonder, when the team is healthy, if he's just in a better position just by virtue of, like, the talent level is deeper. Like, I don't think he fits with Gallagher right now. I think they're two styles that don't mesh. And I also feel like Bolduc is not getting to the areas that he needs to. Like, he got a few shots off tonight. They were all from really far out. And he has a great shot, but he's got to push a little bit further in. He's got to be a little bit more confident with the puck. And there's no easy way to just make that happen, right? You can't just snap your fingers and make a guy have confidence. He's got to figure it out for himself. And that can be a long road.
I think part of with Bolduc too is that during one of their early road trips, it looks like he got hit along the boards, took a stick to the midsection, looked a little bit beat up afterwards, and maybe it wasn't enough to knock him out of missing game time. But I do wonder if some of those bumps and bruises just have not gotten better, and it's impacting the way that he's going to shoot, especially core muscle injuries with, how players shoot the puck, how they skate, how they do everything relies so much on that any damage there impacts things. And I'm wondering if the Olympic break and everything, one, for a bunch of the Canadiens players, helps a lot with that. I know it's going to help other teams too, but I look at someone like Bolduc, I look at someone like even Gallagher, some of the guys on defense there, just to rest their body a little bit. I know Lane Hudson will be on whatever rank he can get access to at any given time, but just to give themselves some time there to heal up. And we see a really strong back half of the season there. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And it's just, can you be like the Gallagher of old a little bit there? Kind of be an asshole. You've got the shot. We know you have shooting talent. We know you have a heavy shot. We know you can get into those dirty areas. Use some of that snarl and really make something of it. That's what I'm hoping for with that. But it's just I don't quite know where to place him right now. But after the Olympic break will tell us a lot, and we'll see like where is Line at? Where is Josh Anderson at coming off the injury? Where is Alex Newhook when he comes back too? All those different things. And we're going to see this lineup look completely different in, a month or so when all these guys are back. And maybe, like you said, with all that depth back, Bolduc can get some more favorable matchups, a different, lineup position, and that really helps him maybe advance to where he needs to be on that.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's so simple what gets a guy going, right? It's just like finding the right spot or like the right line mate that just fires them the puck in a perfect area, right? Like sometimes it is just as simple as that. And I know that early in the season, one of the guys that played really, really well with Bolduc was Kirby Dach. And since Kirby Dach went down, Bolduc has struggled. And I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence. But the bigger thing is to put everything in context. And Lucky Graziano in the chat has a good point here. Says last year at this time, the Habs had 40 points. Now 56. Trajectory's headed in the right direction. Yeah, I mean, facts.
Yeah.
There's no real way to argue with that.
It's hard to say that that's not true. And that's the thing is, am I annoyed the Canadiens lost tonight? Yes. Am I thinking they're a bad team? No, I just think they had a really off night. And even when they had like the rough patches, they're still a team that's in the playoffs no matter what here. And I know it looks worse with all the teams around them thriving right now, but we'll see how long the Sabres hot streak lasts. We'll see how long the Red Wings hot streak lasts. We'll see, et cetera. Tampa's the only team that I'm worried about doing this continually because John Cooper is probably the best coach in the NHL, and I don't think that's an overly strange thing to say in that regard. So
No.
I think it sucks, but it'll pass. It's not like last year where it's like, oh, they lost 4-0, and now they're going to play this and then play this. How bad can it get? It's, okay, how do they respond now? There's a positivity to it, not, oh, it's going to get worse. It's, okay, how do they bounce back?
Yeah, 100%. Montreal MUFC has an off the Habs topic question. Did you see their report on the hockey rink in Milan?
I haven't because it's hard for me to know what is actually terrible and what isn't because like everyone here sees report from Milan and just everybody freaks out and assume it's like the arena burned down and they're going to play hockey on a pond now. Like I don't know.
It was pretty good because people were talking about it on socials today because there's a persistent thing that it's not going to be done all the way. Like it's not built all the way. And I saw some folks being like, well, it's tough to build like a bunch of stuff for the Olympics. And then someone brought up that, no, this was the only building that they built for these Olympics. Everything else is already there or built temporary structures. This is the only permanent structure that they built. And they did a pretty terrible job. They tested the ice today and they felt that it got soft by the end of at the end of the periods. And also it's super dirty because I guess they left the windows or doors open in the arena and a bunch of dirt came in. I don't know, but they're breaking it up and they're going to pour a new sheet of ice and refreeze it. I guess they have another month to figure this out, but a new shape of arena in Milan. So that's going to be interesting, I guess, for the Olympics, but I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what to think about that.
It's all I can think is, and this is maybe the negative side of this, is that some NHL player, some very good NHL player, is going to get dinged up and miss part of the back half of the season, and the owners are going to go, nope, never again. And depending on who it is, and that's going to be that, and everyone's going to blame the NHL, even though this is an owner's decision kind of thing. It's all I can picture happening is just catching a weird little rut in a meaningless game against like Slovenia or something like that. And everybody's going to lose their mind. And you're just going to get think piece after think piece and hot take after hot take on this. And it's like, this could happen at any arena. The ice in
Yep.
the NHL on some of these arenas this year has been terrible, including the Bell Center, which is not a thing that I thought I would ever say. But the ice in some of these games has been miserable, and you could easily blow out your knee in Edmonton as you could in Milan at this point. It's just the nature of the game. But because there's so much more stakes about this being the first NHL Olympics in 16 years?
Since 2014, so
Was it
12 years.
2014? Yeah, Sochi was 2014. That's right. Ah, Jesus
been a
Christ.
while.
It's 12 years is a long time. So,
It doesn't feel like that long, and then I think that like you and I worked together at Habs Eyes in the Prize back then. That was probably like your first year at EOTP.
yes, because
And it
I
feels
was
like
in
yesterday.
college watching the TJ Oshie shootout against Russia in class instead of,
yeah.
taking notes or doing anything else. So it's been a long time. I've had 3 AHL franchises since then, so
Yep. And Trinka mentions that there is a second plan. There's a plan B if the rink doesn't work, where there's an Olympic-sized rink in Switzerland, about an hour away from Milan. But I feel like that would be an all-time embarrassing moment for a country to host the Olympics and be like, actually, we're going to host part of it in another country.
it's well. Here's the thing: is I if they're gonna do it, there's no way they're gonna be like, well, we're not playing the hockey games. They're gonna do whatever they can to play it. At least Switzerland, I know, has up to snuff in the National League their rinks. But like you said, that's a bad look that you've had 4 years plus to build this, and you've got nothing.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good look. All right, we're going to do the last question here, and then we're going to close it out because, frankly, that game sucked, and nobody seems to be that interested in talking about it. So there's a question here from Trinka. It says, what's a reasonable expectation for Kirby Dach this season? We always lower our expectations and have patience with him due to his injuries, but I still want to believe in him. Honestly, because it's not related to the knee. It's the broken foot, and I understand he's in a walking boot. They're probably being super cautious with him. I expect him to pick up where he left off. He looked like really, really confident this season. I'd like to see that back. I don't think this is an injury where he's going to come back and look like last year and be like afraid to re-injure it. Like a broken bone's just not the same as a blown out knee. Yes,
Yeah.
there's some hesitancy for sure, but it's just not even close to the same.
And my thought is, and I've talked to other people about this, is that I want him to come back and be the winger on the Suzuki
line?
Caulfield top line. I thought they had good success there. I think Texier has been a great story. I also think that, we're riding a percentage heater on that, not to be that guy, but it makes me think that I think Dach can be that guy there. He gives them another center on that line, and I think his size is something that can definitely help Caulfield and Suzuki a little bit there. If he can, hit 15 goals, depending on how long it takes him to come back from this, I think that's a pretty good number on that. It's just, I want him to stay healthy because we haven't gotten a full season of Kirby Dach since the trade. He hasn't had a full professional season. Some of that's fluke injuries, going back to World Juniors where dude snapped his wrist in a pre-tournament game and just blowing out a knee on a nothing hit by Jared Tenorti and it's a bunch of freak injuries, but we haven't been able to see what he's been able to do full time. We've seen him be a very good player, and then he gets hurt, and then that momentum loses. My ask for him is, can you come back and fit on that top line, or can you drive your own line somewhere else in this lineup there? Philip Deneau helps take some of that pressure off, I think, to be a necessary center. So that's why I thought, put him on the top line. If he can, get to 15 goals, great. Just kind of help stabilize that top six a little bit more. Maybe help power play too a little bit, and Patrick Laine can help with that as well, which, all respect to Brendan Gallagher, I love the guy, but Laine and Dach is an upgrade on that second unit with Kapanen, Dobson at the point, and maybe giving them two separate threats is a big thing there. And maybe that helps Zach Bolduc get going a little bit on the power play too. If you spread out the threats, we've got a couple Laine over here, slots open, we can put the puck right on his stick there. So I'm hoping Dach just comes back and can be a healthy contributor in wherever he goes, but I'm hoping it's that top line wing spot.
Yeah, it would make a lot of sense, right? Especially now that Kapanen and Demidov and Slavkovsky, they weren't great tonight, but they've been pretty darn excellent for a good stretch here now, and you can see them figuring it out basically every game. The big thing with them before was they would create these extended offensive zone possessions and make beautiful plays, get into shooting position, and be like, "How about one more pass?" And then they would lose the puck and get stuck in their own zone forever because they're still young players. Now they're actually pretty aggressive with the shots. Slavkovsky's ripping it. Kapanen has always liked to shoot, but now Demidov is throwing the shots out there too. So I think the one thing with Demidov though is he's got to shorten his swing with the big one timer. He's looking like PK Subban out there with the big long wind up, and the shot's pretty wild. When he hits it to like at the net, yeah, it's pretty likely to go in because he absolutely rips it. But he's missing a lot, and I think he needs to just choke down a little bit, worry less about velocity, more about accuracy.
And that's sometimes it's too is that it's like, don't worry about the perfect shot. If you can just put it towards the net, make the goalie make a save. Even the best goalie in the NHL is gonna make mistakes. These things happen, just do the simple things right there. They're a young team and they always do this, is that it's just like, just make the simple play sometimes. I know that you guys have all the skill and talent in the world to make things happen, but sometimes just make the simple play. If it's chipping it off the glass, if it's just putting a shot at the net, putting it in for a rebound, the perfect play is not always going to be there. And that's when this team kind of stagnates a little bit, is that, well, this didn't work out. What do we do now? And it's like, just go back to basics. Puck on net, good. Simple as that.
100%. Sometimes, and it sounds reductive to talk about it like that, but that is like a lot of in-person, in-the-moment coaching, whether it's hockey or anything else. Like I've learned it in taking up boxing, is that like the most common thing that you will hear when you go into your corner from your coach is use your jab. And it's like, yeah, duh. It's the most common thing that you do, but sometimes you need to be reminded. And yeah, sometimes like just shoot the puck, like do the simple thing, and you need to be reminded because you're overthinking sometimes. You're caught up in the moment. You're reacting instead of planning. That's sports, right? Especially at the highest level where everything's so fast. But these Canadians are heading in the right direction. Shitty game tonight. Hopefully a better one the next one. Thanks so much, Scott Matla, for joining me here tonight. And thanks to everyone who joined us live. It is always fun to hang out with you, even after a bad game. Hopefully we can all go to bed now and sleep well, knowing that this is probably the worst game we'll see for a stretch.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah.
Hopefully.
All right. We'll see you on the next one.